Lyra Voss sat in the cold, empty chamber of the Starship Tribunal, her hands folded tightly in front of her. She could feel the weight of 100 eyes on her, though most were hidden behind the glass of observation decks. Her chest tightened as the chief judge's voice echoed, sharp and unforgiving. "Commander Lyra Voss, you are found guilty of treason against the Galactic Federation. Your sentence, exile to Acheron Prime. You will have no rights, no support, and no hope of return." Departure is immediate. Lyra's mind spun. She had known that politics in the Federation was dangerous, but she had never imagined it would come to this. The evidence had been fabricated, her allies turned against her, and now she was condemned to a death sentence in all but name. Acheron Prime had earned a reputation across the galaxy as a cursed world. No human had survived there for more than a week, or so they said. Her transfer was quick and silent. The tribunal made sure of that. A sleek shuttle carried her through the black void, stars glimmering like distant promises she could no longer reach. The pilot did not speak. Lyra did not want to speak either. She spent the journey staring at the dark glass, thinking about her life, the friends who had betrayed her, and the worlds she would never see again. When the shuttle finally broke through the atmosphere of Acheron Prime, the view took her breath away. Jagged mountains stretched as far as the eye could see, their peaks covered in dark, swirling clouds. The planet's surface was a mixture of rocky plains and strange, alien forests that shimmered with an odd, bioluminescent glow. But beauty did not fool her. Every part of this planet seemed alive with danger. The shuttle began its descent. Lyra gritted her teeth as alarms screamed, warning of violent winds and magnetic interference. She gripped the seat's armrests as the vehicle shuddered violently. The ground came closer, a mix of cracked earth and sharp stones, and then a sudden gust slammed the shuttle sideways. The impact was brutal, but the shuttle's hull held, just barely. Lyra crawled from the wreckage, coughing from dust and scorched air. The shuttle was destroyed, a twisted heap of metal behind her. Her supplies were minimal, a small pack of rations, a basic survival kit, and a blaster. Communication devices were fried by the planet's storms. She was truly alone. The first hours were brutal. The winds cut like knives, and every step on the jagged terrain threatened to twist an ankle or cut her skin. Strange, shadowy figures flitted in the distance, and she caught glimpses of glowing eyes in the forests. Lyra knew the stories of Acheron Prime's wildlife were not exaggerations. Some of the creatures could crush a human without effort. Others could strike from the shadows, fast and silent. Despite the fear gnawing at her, she forced herself to move. Survival depended on constant motion, on not giving the planet a chance to pick her apart. She found shelter in a narrow cave at the base of a mountain. It was small and dark, but it would keep her out of the wind. She built a fire, the smoke rising into the stormy sky, a small comfort against the cold. At night, the planet seemed alive in ways she had not imagined. The wind carried strange sounds, whistles, groans, and the echo of something moving just beyond her vision. She kept her blaster close and slept lightly, one eye always open. Fear was a constant companion, but it sharpened her senses, made her aware of every shift in the shadows. The following days were a trial by fire. Food ran low, and she had to rely on what little knowledge of alien flora she remembered from her training. Some plants were safe, others poisonous. She learned quickly which ones could sustain her and which could not. Her blaster became more than a weapon. It was a tool, breaking apart rocks to extract water, scaring away small predators, and reminding her that she could fight back. It was on the 5th day that she noticed something unusual. Fresh footprints led past her cave, too large and heavy for any animal she had encountered. They were human, or at least humanoid. Lyra's heart raced. Could someone else be here? Could someone have survived this world all this time? She followed the footprints cautiously, keeping to the shadows and observing from a distance. The trail led her into a valley surrounded by jagged cliffs. There in the middle of a dry riverbed, she saw him. A man, lean and strong, moving with a grace that betrayed years of survival. His clothes were tattered, patched in places, but he carried himself with confidence, as if he belonged here more than anywhere else in the galaxy. Lyra approached carefully, making no sudden moves. The man froze, his eyes narrowing, then darted behind a boulder. He was cautious, wary, as anyone would be in a place like this. Lyra called out softly, "I'm not here to hurt you. My name is Lyra Voss." The man's voice was rough but controlled. "You shouldn't be here. Nobody survives this world for long. I know, Lyra admitted, but I don't have a choice. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Follow me, keep quiet, this planet listens. Lyra followed, moving over rocky terrain and through dense forests that seemed to pulse with life. The man led her to a hidden shelter, a structure built from the remains of the planet's ancient ruins. Inside, the temperature was surprisingly warm and the place smelled of herbs and smoke. It was a small sanctuary in the middle of a world designed to kill. My name is Kale, he said, finally offering her a small smile. I've been here for 5 years. The storms, the creatures, the ruins, they almost killed me more than once. You'll need to learn fast if you want to survive. Lyra nodded, relief mixing with a strange sense of determination. She had survived this long through sheer will and training, but Kale's presence changed everything. She realized that she wasn't just fighting the planet anymore. She had someone to teach her, someone to learn from. As the days passed, Lyra began to understand the rhythm of Acheron Prime. She learned to read the weather, anticipate the movements of predators, and use the ruins for shelter and resources. Kale taught her how to set traps, how to forage safely, and how to avoid the planet's more dangerous areas. The bond between them grew, founded on survival, trust, and a shared understanding that this world would not forgive mistakes. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the jagged peaks, Lyra and Kale sat outside their shelter, watching the glowing forest stretch into the distance. Lyra couldn't help but feel a strange sense of awe. Despite its dangers, Acheron Prime was alive, vibrant, and powerful. It was a world that demanded respect, a world that rewarded ingenuity and courage. Why do you think you survived? Lyra asked quietly. Kale shrugged. I don't know, luck maybe, determination. Humans have a way of surviving where others wouldn't. Lyra smiled faintly, thinking of the irony. Here she was, a condemned exile alive because of the same stubbornness that had made her a target in the first place. Perhaps there was a reason she had been sent here, a test she hadn't understood yet. As the first part of her journey on Acheron Prime came to an end, Lyra realized one truth. Survival was only the beginning. This world was harsh, unforgiving, and full of mysteries. And somewhere within its jagged mountains and glowing forests, secrets waited, secrets that could change everything. For the first time since her sentence, she felt a spark of hope. Not just to survive, but to fight, to prove that no world, no storm, and no sentence could break the human spirit. Lyra woke to the sound of wind howling across the valley. The twin moons had set, leaving the world in a dim gray light. She sat up carefully, brushing dust from her clothes, and looked over at Kale, who was already moving quietly around their shelter. He had become a figure she relied on without fully realizing it. His knowledge of Acheron Prime was unmatched, and even the harshest parts of the planet seemed manageable when he was near. Morning, she said softly. Kale glanced at her, his eyes sharp. Don't make noise, the plains aren't empty, creatures watch from a distance. They know everything. Lyra nodded, heart pounding. Every step outside the shelter was a gamble. The world beyond their sanctuary was a constant test of skill, speed, and intelligence. Even small mistakes could be fatal. She had learned that in the first days, but now, under Kale's guidance, she felt her instincts sharpen. Today, Kale said, we move deeper into the ruins. There's something there I want to show you, something that might explain why humans ever came here. Lyra followed silently. The ruins stretched across a rocky plateau, remnants of a civilization far older and more advanced than the Federation. Towering structures had collapsed into jagged shapes, and the stone was covered with intricate carvings that seemed to glow faintly under the twin moons' light. Some patterns were familiar, resembling technological schematics more than art. Others were completely alien, leaving her imagination racing. As they moved, Kale explained what he knew. This world wasn't always dead. Humans came here centuries ago to study its energy fields and the ruins. Some wanted knowledge, others power. They created experiments that got out of control. That's why it's forbidden now. Lyra felt a chill run down her spine. Experiments? She asked, glancing at the shattered towers. Like weapons? Kale hesitated. Not exactly, something they couldn't fully control. Some say it destroyed the cities and killed most of the population. Others say the planet itself fought back. Whatever happened, it left this place dangerous. They entered a building that still stood mostly intact. Inside, walls were lined with strange metal panels, flickering with faint blue energy. Lyra reached out to touch one, but Kale grabbed her arm. Don't, some still work. Some don't, but the ones that do, they don't care about humans. Lyra pulled back. Her heart raced. She had thought the dangers outside, the storms, the wildlife, were the only threats. Now even ruins, abandoned for centuries, could kill her. As they explored, they found signs of past human habitation, collapsed bunkers, old tools, and skeletal remains frozen in time. Lyra shuddered. She knew Kale had seen many such things before, but the reality still struck her. Every survivor on this planet had to be clever, fast, and fearless. One mistake could be the last. Hours passed, and they finally reached a larger chamber, its ceiling high above, crumbling in places. In the center was a strange device, a metallic orb hovering slightly above a pedestal. It pulsed with a soft blue light, casting eerie shadows. "This," Kale said quietly, "is why humans came here, energy like nothing in the galaxy." They thought it could power entire fleets, entire planets, but they underestimated it. That's why the experiments failed. Lyra studied the orb, mesmerized. It seemed alive, almost aware of their presence. She reached out slowly, curiosity winning over caution. The moment her fingers brushed the surface, a wave of energy ran through her. Her vision blurred and she stumbled back. Kale grabbed her shoulder. "You feel it, don't you?" he asked. "It's dangerous but powerful. Humans couldn't control it. They vanished trying." Lyra's pulse raced. She had survived storms, wild creatures, and the planet itself. But this was different. It was as if the world had a mind and it was testing them. They spent the next days examining the ruins carefully. Kale taught her how to navigate the traps built into the structures, mechanical defenses that still worked after centuries of neglect. Some were simple, pressure plates that triggered alarms or small energy blasts, but others were more complex, targeting movement, heat, and even thought patterns. Lyra marveled at the ingenuity and foresaw ways humans could adapt such systems if they could replicate them. One evening, while studying a hallway covered in carvings, Lyra noticed something peculiar. Among the alien symbols, there were human letters etched faintly, almost hidden. She traced them with her fingers. "Coordinates," she whispered. "Someone wanted to leave a message." Kale leaned over her shoulder. "Careful, the planet doesn't like secrets being uncovered, but you might be right. This could lead to something important, something that explains the experiments and why the planet is alive in this way." They decided to follow the coordinates. The path led them through treacherous terrain, narrow cliffs, dense forests with predatory plants, and ravines filled with sharp rocks. At one point, Lyra slipped, nearly falling into a deep chasm, but Kale grabbed her in time. "Stay alert," he warned. "The planet senses fear. It reacts to it." Lyra swallowed, realizing just how literal his warning was. Each step required not just skill, but control over her own emotions. Panic could be deadly here, but so could overconfidence. After hours of careful navigation, they reached the coordinates, a hidden chamber buried beneath the ruins. The entrance was partially collapsed, but Kale cleared it with makeshift tools and his experience. Inside, the chamber was surprisingly intact. It contained rows of panels glowing softly and a large map of the planet etched into the floor. Energy lines pulsed along the map, marking locations where experiments had occurred. "This," Lyra whispered, "this is a record of everything humans did here." Kale nodded. "And some of these places still contain power, dangerous power. That's why I've stayed away until now. But we might need it to survive or to understand the planet." As they explored the chamber, Lyra found a small console with a damaged interface. With Kale's guidance, she managed to activate it partially. Holographic images flickered to life, showing humans working with alien technology, testing energy fields, and then panicking as systems overloaded. Entire structures collapsed, fires spreading and people vanishing in bursts of light. The images were horrifying, yet fascinating. "They thought they could control it," Lyra said quietly, "but they underestimated the planet." Kale placed a hand on her shoulder. "It doesn't forgive mistakes easily, but humans are clever, adaptable. We survived where others didn't. That's why you're here. That's why I'm here." Lyra felt a surge of determination. She had been sent to this world to die, but now she saw a different path. Survival wasn't enough. Understanding this planet, mastering its dangers, and uncovering its secrets, that was a challenge she was ready to accept. Over the next few days, they used the chamber as a base, exploring nearby ruins and mapping safe paths. Lyra learned how to detect the faint hums of energy traps, read the subtle signs of predator movements, and used the alien technology to their advantage. Every discovery strengthened her resolve and deepened her admiration for Kale, who had survived alone for years and adapted in ways that seemed almost superhuman. One night, as they rested outside the chamber, the wind died down for the first time in weeks. The twin moons cast a silver light over the jagged landscape. Lyra looked at Kale, grateful for his guidance and companionship. "I thought I would die here," she said softly, "but with you I feel like I might actually live, maybe even thrive." Kale smiled faintly, his eyes reflecting the moons. "You will. Humans always find a way. We're stubborn, determined, and sometimes reckless. But that's how we survive. That's how we win." Lyra knew he was right. The planet was harsh, unforgiving, and full of secrets, but humans had a way of turning impossible situations into victories, and she was determined to prove that, no matter the cost. As they looked out over the ruins, a new understanding settled over Lyra. This world had tested humans before, and it would test them again. But she would not just survive. She would adapt, learn, and conquer, and perhaps in doing so she would uncover truths that no human had ever known. For the first time since her exile, Lyra felt not fear but purpose. The forbidden world had not broken her. It had only made her stronger. And the adventure was just beginning. The days had grown longer, and the planet seemed to shift around them, as if testing their endurance. Lyra and Kale had explored much of the ruins, discovered energy sources, and mapped dangerous areas, but a sense of unease lingered. The deeper they went into the heart of the ruins, the more they realized the planet was not merely abandoned. Something ancient still pulsed beneath the surface, waiting, aware. Lyra tightened the straps of her pack and adjusted the worn blaster at her side. Kale was already moving ahead, his silhouette steady against the dim glow of the twin moons. "Keep your senses sharp," he murmured. "The planet doesn't forgive mistakes. Not anymore." They entered a massive hall, half-collapsed, its ceiling pierced by jagged rocks and hanging vines. Strange symbols glimmered along the walls, casting soft, pulsating light. At the center of the hall was a platform, glowing faintly, with an orb similar to the one they had discovered earlier. But this orb was larger, humming with energy that vibrated through the air. Lyra could feel it even from a distance. "This is it," Kale whispered. "The core. The source of the planet's energy. If we want to understand what happened here or survive fully, we have to face it." Lyra nodded, feeling a mix of fear and determination. Every instinct screamed that this was dangerous, that the orb could destroy them with a thought. But she had survived storms, creatures, and the deadly ruins. She was human, and humans thrived where others failed. As they approached, the orb pulsed faster, sensing their presence. Energy surged along the platform, and Lyra felt the hairs on her arms stand on end. The air itself seemed to resist them, pushing against their movements. Kale placed a hand on her shoulder. "Focus. Don't panic. Remember what you've learned." Lyra took a deep breath, steadying her mind. She had trained for crises before, but nothing had prepared her for this. The orb seemed alive, aware, and it was measuring them. She raised her hand, touching the energy field cautiously. A jolt ran through her, but she held on, letting her will and determination flow through her body. Suddenly, the platform shifted. Sections of the floor moved, revealing narrow gaps and mechanical defenses. Automated drones, long dormant, activated and hovered in the air, scanning for movement. Kale reacted instantly, pulling Lyra behind cover and firing precise shots to disable the nearest drones. The air filled with sparks and energy discharges as they moved through the hall, dodging traps and avoiding hazards. Lyra's mind raced. This was more than survival. It was a test of intelligence, reflexes, and courage. She remembered every lesson Kale had taught her, every pattern she had observed in the planet's defenses, and applied them with precision. Each step, each decision, determined whether they would live or perish. They reached the orb's pedestal, and Kale gestured toward a control panel. "We need to stabilize the energy field. If it overloads, it could destroy everything in this chamber, maybe even the planet's ecosystem." Lyra approached, studying the alien symbols and controls. Her hands moved carefully, aligning energy conduits and recalibrating the field using knowledge she had learned from the ruins and Kale's guidance. Sparks flew, and a low hum filled the hall, but she persisted, focusing on the task as if her life depended on it, because it did. After what felt like hours, the orb's energy began to stabilize. The humming slowed, the air ceased its violent vibrations, and the hall became quiet. Lyra stepped back, breathing heavily, realizing they had succeeded. The orb pulsed gently, no longer a threat, a sign of their triumph. Kale smiled, a rare moment of relief on his face. "You did it," he said. "I knew humans could do what machines and nature couldn't, clever, adaptable, unstoppable when they need to be." Lyra's chest swelled with pride. She had been sent here to die, to be forgotten, but she had survived, conquered, and learned the secrets of a world no human had touched for centuries. The thought filled her with strength she had never known. Their triumph was short-lived. A low rumble shook the chamber. Outside, the ruins began to tremble, stones falling and dust rising in heavy clouds. The orb's energy, though stable, had triggered a planetary reaction. Lyra and Kale realized that staying was no longer safe. The planet itself seemed to be shifting, reacting to their presence and the activation of the core energy. "We need to leave," Kale shouted over the roar. "Now!" They ran through collapsing corridors, dodging falling debris and newly activated defenses. Some of the drones they had disabled earlier reactivated, firing at them, but Lyra's quick thinking and Kale's experience allowed them to evade the worst of it. Each step was calculated, each decision critical. Survival had become a battle of wits and reflexes. As they reached the outer ruins, Lyra noticed something in the distance. A signal beacon, partially buried, flickering weakly. It was old, barely functioning, but it could call for rescue if they could reach it before the planet's collapse claimed them. "Can you make it?" Kale asked. Lyra nodded. "We have to try." They sprinted across the jagged terrain, leaping over crumbling rocks and avoiding the strange, predatory plants that reacted to motion. The planet seemed alive, almost sentient, trying to stop them from leaving with its secrets. But Lyra and Kale were determined. They had survived impossible odds before and would do so again. Finally, they reached the beacon. Lyra activated it, the ancient technology sparking and whirring to life. A signal shot into orbit, blinking across the galaxy, a call for rescue. For the first time in days, Lyra allowed herself to feel hope. Help was coming, but the planet was not finished. The ground beneath them cracked, and a massive chasm opened, separating them from the ruins they had conquered. Rocks tumbled into the depths as Lyra and Kale held their ground on a narrow ledge. The energy from the orb pulsed beneath them, sending waves of force into the air. Kale looked at Lyra, determination in his eyes. "We survived this together, one step at a time." With careful movements, they navigated the ledge, using the skills they had honed over weeks of survival. The world shook around them, but they pressed forward, refusing to give in to fear. Every obstacle was met with ingenuity, courage, and the stubborn persistence that defined humans. At last, they reached a high plateau overlooking the ruins. Below, Acheron Prime's chaos raged, storms, collapsing structures, and unstable energy fields, but they stood safe if only temporarily. Lyra looked at Kale, a sense of triumph filling her chest. "We did it," she said, voice trembling with exhaustion and relief. Kale nodded, smiling faintly. "We did. Humans always do." Moments later, a fleet appeared in orbit, responding to the beacon. Ships descended, their lights cutting through the dark clouds, sending rescue teams to retrieve the survivors. Lyra felt a surge of gratitude and triumph. She had been sent to die, but she was leaving alive, stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever the galaxy might throw at her next. As they were lifted from the planet, Lyra looked back at Acheron Prime. Its jagged mountains, glowing forests, and ancient ruins had tested her to the limits. It had tried to break her, but it had only strengthened her. She knew she would never forget the lessons she had learned here: courage, ingenuity, perseverance, and the unstoppable spirit of humanity. Kale, standing beside her, looked at the planet with a similar mix of awe and relief. "Maybe one day," he said quietly, "humans will come back, not to conquer, but to learn to understand. There's power here, knowledge no one else could reach." Lyra nodded, feeling the truth of his words. Humanity was special, not because of technology or weapons, but because of adaptability, intelligence, and determination. No world, no matter how dangerous, could destroy that. The rescue team arrived, bringing them aboard a ship that would return them to the Federation. Lyra stood on the deck, watching Acheron Prime fade into the distance. She thought of the trials she had faced, the dangers she had survived, and the bond she had formed with Kale. Together, they had conquered a world that had been designed to kill them, proving that humans could thrive where others failed. As the stars stretched into the infinite black of space, Lyra felt a quiet pride. She had been sentenced to die on a forbidden world, but instead, she had survived, learned, and triumphed. And as the ship carried them away, she knew one thing for certain. Humans were not easily defeated. No matter the odds, no matter the world, they would endure, adapt, and conquer. And somewhere in the vastness of space, Acheron Prime waited, silent, dangerous, and full of secrets. But Lyra and Kale had proven that even the most forbidden worlds could not break the spirit of humanity.